Some killers are caught, brought to justice, their crimes recorded in history, but others vanish. They leave behind questions, chaos, and victims whose families never find peace. These are the monsters who escape the spotlight, whose names remain unknown, but whose terror changed cities and lives forever. Today we're diving deep into 5 of the most infamous serial killers in history, who were never caught. Their crimes were real, their trails ice cold. Our first killer terrorized California in the late 1960s and early 70s. The man who called himself the Zodiac claimed responsibility for 37 murders, though only 5 were officially confirmed. His victims were young couples, often parked in cars in remote areas. The attacks were brutal and sudden, involving both guns and knives. But what set him apart wasn't just the violence, it was the game. The Zodiac sent taunting letters to newspapers filled with cryptic symbols and ciphers. In one chilling message, he claimed, "I like killing people because it is so much fun. It's more fun than killing wild game in the forest." He even threatened to attack school buses. His most famous cipher, the 340-character Z340, remained unsolved for 51 years before amateur cryptographers cracked it in 2020. But it revealed no identity. Over the years, hundreds of suspects were investigated, including Arthur Lee Allen, who was heavily profiled in the media. But no one was ever arrested. Decades later, DNA evidence offered hope, but it's never produced a confirmed match. To this day, the Zodiac remains a ghost, one of the most infamous unidentified killers in American history. In 2010, Suffolk County Police were searching for a missing woman named Shannon Gilbert along Gilgo Beach, Long Island. What they found instead shocked the nation. Within days, 4 other bodies were discovered, wrapped in burlap and hidden in the brush along Ocean Parkway. All 4 were young women who had worked as escorts. The investigation would eventually uncover at least 11 victims between 1996 and 2011, leading the media to name the killer the Gilgo Beach Killer, or the Long Island Serial Killer, LISK. The crimes had chilling similarities. Most of the victims were petite women, aged 20 to 30, all connected to online escort ads, and most were carefully disposed of in the same remote area. Despite massive public interest, years of dead ends followed. Police were accused of mishandling the case and withholding information from the public. In 2023, a suspect, Rex Heuermann, a New York City architect, was arrested and charged with several of the murders. However, authorities believe more than one killer may be involved. That means some of the murders remain unsolved. Was Heuermann the only predator operating in the shadows of Long Island? Or are there others still walking free? Even with new developments, the mystery of LISK may be far from over. On a stretch of road between Prince George and Prince Rupert in British Columbia, Canada, known as Highway 16, over 40 women, most of them indigenous, have vanished or been murdered since 1969. The route spans hundreds of miles of remote terrain, making investigations difficult and slow. Many of the women were last seen hitchhiking, as the area lacks reliable public transport. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police, RCMP, launched a task force called EPANA to investigate these cases. While some were attributed to known criminals, such as Bobby Jack Fowler, the majority remain unsolved. Activists and indigenous leaders argue that systemic racism, police neglect, and indifference toward indigenous communities allowed the killer, or killers, to operate for decades without scrutiny. Some believe this is not the work of one serial killer, but several, exploiting the same conditions. The chilling nickname, Highway of Tears, is a haunting reminder of the lives lost, and the justice never served. Long before Jack the Ripper stalked the streets of London, another brutal killer claimed lives in the heart of Texas. Between 1884 and 1885, Austin was plagued by a mysterious figure known as the servant girl Annihilator. Over the course of a single year, 8 people were murdered, most of them black servant women, attacked in their homes while they slept. The killer often dragged victims outside, mutilated them with axes or sharp objects, and left their bodies posed in disturbing ways. Authorities at the time were baffled. The attacks were ferocious, methodical, and seemed to escalate. Some began to wonder, Was this killer a precursor to Jack the Ripper? In fact, the timeline is striking. The murders in Austin stopped just months before the Whitechapel killings in London began. Though there's no solid evidence to connect the two, the theory still fascinates historians. The servant girl Annihilator was never caught, and his crimes were largely forgotten for decades. Today, he's known as one of America's first documented serial killers, and one of the most mysterious. The Colonial Parkway Killer. Between 1986 and 1989, 8 people were murdered in 4 separate double homicides along the scenic Colonial Parkway in Virginia. The victims were mostly young couples, parked near waterways in remote areas. Some were found inside vehicles, others in the woods or submerged in rivers. Several had their throats slashed or were strangled. Yet there was often no sign of robbery or sexual assault. What puzzled investigators most was the calculated nature of the crimes. Many believed the killer might have posed as a law enforcement officer, approaching parked vehicles late at night. Despite FBI involvement and years of speculation, no arrests were ever made. Victims' families continue to push for answers, with recent advancements in DNA testing offering renewed hope. But more than 3 decades later, the Colonial Parkway Killer remains a phantom, his motives unknown, his identity hidden. These killers left more than just bodies behind. They left questions, they left families shattered, and they left behind cold trails that may never be warmed again. Which of these cases chills you the most? Do you think any of these killers will ever be identified? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want more deep dive true crime stories, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss a case. Until next time, stay safe and stay curious.